From Michael's. I wanted to just say hello, welcome you guys to the call. We're so excited to have Megan Faulkner from the Sweet Tooth Fairy joining us today. She's going to show us some really cool ways to use candy melts and make some neat treats and give us some new ideas while we're all home. So Megan, welcome. We're so happy to have you. And for those joining the call, we will be posting this recording after the class at michaels.com/classes. So if you want to go back and rewatch how to do this cool technique, it should be there starting tomorrow. So Megan, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I am so excited to be here today with all of you. Thank you for taking time on your Monday to hang out with me here in the kitchen and just talk cake and decorating and sprinkles and all the things. So I just wanted to give you a super brief background. I am a lifelong cake and baking hobbyist. Some of my earliest memories are in the kitchen, you know, sitting up to the counter, watching my mom and my dad work together. I worked in the food industry as a young adolescent throughout my high school years, even into college. And it was about 15 years ago that I started baking stuff out of my home to supplement my growing family's income. And here we are several years later and have some really amazing opportunities. We have franchised our bakery and we have several here regionally in Utah. I've participated in One Food Network's Cupcake Wars. We've been on the Rachel Ray Show several times, been featured locally and nationally. And my greatest joy and honor is to be on the shelves in Michael's, a store that I grew up featuring every, seems like forever. I feel like I grew up in the aisles of Michael's. So I'm super excited to be here just to tell you a little bit more about our meltables, which are in stores now, along with some of our other sprinkles and candy, and just to teach you a little bit more about cake. So with that, I wanted to just give you a few tips and tricks before I get into the actual decorating. One of the things that I have found is so helpful with cakes is to bake them ahead. You can see that this is covered in saran wrap. So what I like to do is bake the cake ahead of time, allow it to cool to room temperature, and that is when the cake is cool, that's when you can take your knife and level it off. You can also, here, I'll open this up. You can also see that sometimes when maybe if you use a little bit too much, you know, non-stick spray, you might get a really kind of dark edge around your cake where the batter meets the tin. But you can take your knife and you can kind of shave it off so you get a little bit cleaner of an edge. So again, I like to bake these ahead, wrap them up in saran wrap after I've done all that process, and I put them in the freezer from anywhere from 24 hours to, you know, a few weeks. I know so many of us are so busy and trying to, you know, plan ahead for celebrations. It's really helpful to know that you don't have to do everything all in one day. You can definitely take certain steps and plan ahead and get that step out of the way and then move on. So the next thing that I am going to show you, here are some gloves, which sadly nowadays we're all very accustomed to, but I love these so much. I use them all the time in the kitchen because I get kind of particular with my hands being kind of yucky and gross. But the next thing I'm going to show you how to do is just to put your cake onto your cardboard cake round. And all you're going to do is you're going to take some frosting and you're just going to put a little bit of dollop. You don't have to use a piping bag to do that. But what you're essentially doing is creating glue for your cake. And with your cake being chilled, you'll find that it actually sets up pretty nicely initially so that your cake won't slide around as you're doing the decorating process. I should also say that these turntables, any turntable is your best friend when it comes to cake decorating. Imagine yourself like you're the cake DJ and this is what's doing all your work for you. You'll see throughout this class how often I am using this and how often I let this do the work. So I'm not leaning over and trying to, you know, frost and decorate at at awkward positions. Okay, so we have our chilled cake on our cardboard cake ground. And now what I'm gonna do is I am going to pipe, I call it like a frosting wall. And I'll show you why. So all I'm doing is applying even amounts of pressure, following the edge of my cake, and here, I'll tip it up a little bit. But you can see how it's like this nice, yummy wall of frosting. So this is really important when you are filling your cake with something that isn't the same texture as your frosting. You have to think of your frosting as the glue that's gonna hold your layers together. So if I were using like a lemon curd or a jam or a pudding or a mousse or something, if I didn't have this frosting wall, it would be like wibbly wobbly all over the place. So again, this just acts as a way to secure your cake together. So I don't have any of curd or pudding, so I'm actually gonna go ahead and finish filling the cake with the rest of this buttercream.
Megan, while you're doing that, how long do you, someone's asking how long you chill your cake for, and if you decorate your cake after it's thawed, or can you decorate it frozen?
Okay, so I chill, so if I have a freshly baked cake and it's cooled and I've leveled it and I'm chilling it for at least 3 hours, but up to a few weeks, as long as it's airtight and saran wrapped. You want to make sure that it's as I don't know what the right word is, just like frozen and together as possible, so that when you start decorating, you're not going to compromise the integrity, like the structural integrity of your cake. Because as it thaws, it'll soften up a little bit, but you don't want it to be too soft, or else it'll kind of be wiggly and wobbly all over the place. So to answer your question, yes, I decorate it while it's frozen, and it kind of obviously thaws a little bit throughout the process. And especially under these lights, it's gonna thaw pretty fast. So does that answer? I hope that answers your question. So I'm just taking my other layer of cake, and I'm going to put it on top of this layer. And I'm kind of gonna give it just a little nice, firm little press down to make sure that the frosting adheres to the bottom of that cake layer. Okay, so we're gonna talk crumb coat. A crumb coat is basically a scrappy layer of frosting meant to trap in all the crumbs. It does not need to look pretty in any way. What you're trying to do is make it so when you get to the outer, like your exterior frosting, which is obviously what people see, the part that you're actually decorating, that you're not gonna see a ton of these crumbs that get dragged through the frosting while you're applying the frosting. So I will now do that. And you'll see, if you don't have a piping bag, that's totally fine. Let's say your frosting was, in a bowl. You would just take your spatula. You just take a spatula, and I'm gonna use this after I do the crumb coat with the bowl, but you'll see you can just use this to apply it. But I'm gonna use my piping bag since I have it here already. And see how I'm holding this hand completely still? And I'm using this hand to just spin the turntable. I'm just gonna keep doing that, applying even amounts of pressure while doing so.
We have a couple questions, Megan. So if you freeze the cake when you're ready to use it, how long will you keep it out to get it to room temperature?
So I would take it out about an hour and a half to 2 hours before, because it'll still remain chilled inside, even at that. I mean, obviously it depends on, where you are, if you're inside a room temperature room or if you're outside in, at the beach having a party, but I would at least take it out that far in advance.
Also, do you use American buttercream or a meringue-based buttercream?
So I am using an American buttercream. But I have mad love for meringue-based buttercream too. But today we're using American-based buttercream. Okay, so did you see how, sorry, I was two things at once. So after I put on my crumb coat, I just am holding my spatula still and essentially scraping just a thin layer. See how that's kind of messy? And that's actually like the naked look. So there's another tip if you wanted a naked look. You just do a really thin layer of frosting and scrape it off. And I'm gonna do the top. The other thing that I will do, especially if I am making a naked cake or sheer, semi-naked, whatever you want to call it, I will take whatever liquid I use in my recipe, so whether it's a juice or a cream or milk or what have you, and I will thin out the frosting just a little bit. Sometimes when your frosting is super thick and you're doing that naked cake, it rips the weight of the cake kind of pulls, excuse me, the weight of the frosting kind of pulls the cake off so much and it gets super, super crummy instead of just like a sheer layer of frosting. So I'll thin out my frosting to make sure if I'm trying to get that really beautiful naked look that I'm not using like a very, very thick, heavy frosting. Okay, so here we go. There is our crumb coated cake. And I'm gonna go have this, I'm gonna go let it chill. But I actually have another one. I have some TV magic happening. I frosted one already this morning. So we'll just get that other one in here and then we can keep going. We can get to all the fun decorating. Let's see. I think it's coming. Thank you for your patience. Awesome. Okay. So we're gonna move this off. Thank you. Do you have any tape? Tape. Okay, so magic. I'm going to show you another little trick. So here's my cake that has been crumb coated and chilled. One of the things that I like to do when I am now going to be decorating my crumb coated cake is if I don't have like a non-slip, mat to make it so my cake doesn't shift around, I just take some tape and I do like a little ring of tape. Oops. And it's gonna stick to my gloves. But I'll just take like a little ring of tape and put it on the bottom of this cardboard cake round, which is different than the one that the cake is on. And then I set it on my turntable, give it a good little press so that now when I start decorating this cake, it's not gonna slide all over Kingdom Come, because that gets a little bit tricky when that starts to happen. So, all right, I'm gonna show you a few different techniques just before we get to the meltables to decorate, to frost your cake. So I still have some more of this frosting in a piping bag. And I'm gonna do the same thing I did with the crumb coat. I'm just gonna apply some even pressure and squeeze as I spin. I'm gonna keep squeezing. I'm gonna grab a little bit more frosting. I'll show you, there's so many different ways to do this, and I promise you, you might see cakes online, or at a party and think like, oh my word, how did they do that? But honestly, you're about to see how easy some of this stuff is. Okay, one moment, I just have my frosting, extra frosting's right there. I'm just gonna grab it. Okay. Okay, so me cut this just a little bit. Where'd those scissors go? Sorry, guys. Misplaced some scissors. It's fine. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Okay. So I just ran a little low on frosting. So I just got a little bit more. And again, doing the same thing, holding the bag still, applying even amounts of pressure till it has a nice little coat. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do, I call this like the messy look. And this is particularly awesome for beginners if you're feeling intimidated by that really sharp, smooth look, because all you have to do is take a spatula. You can take a spoon. You can take a spoon and kind of do the same. All you're gonna do is kind of pull, do little swirls. So you kind of give it this super textured, messy, kind of messy look. You see that? It looks really yummy, especially with chocolate, because it just looks like so delicious. Okay, the other thing with one of these icing spatulas, I'm gonna smooth this out real quick. The other thing is you can just go like up and down, up and down, up and down, and you're gonna get this really pretty vertical kind of stripy look. See, isn't that cute? So cute.
Megan, really quick, how do you get the frosting so thick, like so that it doesn't melt and you have the cake slide? Do you keep it chilled?
The frosting?
Yeah, so one person's worried about the consistency of their frosting, so how do you get the frosting to be thick?
So I would either increase your powdered sugar or decrease your liquid, just so it's not so thick and that it's easily manipulated with your whatever tool you're using. Does that make sense? So, okay. So other technique you can use is, let's see, I'm gonna add a little bit more frosting because I can see that I didn't complete my coverage over here. I got too excited. So another technique is, again, just to hold your hands still and let this table do its thing. And what you're gonna do is you're just gonna gently apply pressure with your spatula to the cake. And you're gonna just spin your turntable. See how I'm not moving my hand? I'm just spinning. The only movement my hand is doing is slightly moving up the cake. Just slightly, slightly, I'm lifting my hand. Little bit, little bit, little bit as I go. So you see? So it kind of creates these horizontal lines, kind of ruffly kind of feel. So anyway, so there are some techniques that you can use with just your spatula. With that said, there are some cool things called cake combs out there. I won't show every single one of these, but you can see that some of these have edges that are scalloped, some of them are squared off. You can see that as you let your cake turner do the job, you turn, see how it gives that texture. I'll show you just one more. This one kind of has more of like a jagged edge. Let's see. I've got to straighten out a little bit so you can see smooth out the frosting a little so you can see the texture of it. But that's what's so great about these combs and a cake turner. You just let the cake turner do the work for you. So those are a little bit closer vertical lines together. So there's a lot of really cool cake combs out there. And yeah, so they're really great. They add a lot of texture, a lot of interest to your cakes. So let us move on to drips. I am just gonna smooth this out a little bit before we get to the meltables. Are there any questions right now, just while I'm doing this, that I can answer?
Yes, Megan. What's your favorite recipe for buttercream?
Ooh, I actually love doing like a cream cheese and butter mix. So I don't know how we would do this, but I'm happy to share one of my favorite recipes. It calls for lots of butter and lots of cream cheese, but it's very good. And I would be happy to share that with you guys. I don't want to, I'm pretty sure I have it memorized, but I don't want to botch it. So I will figure it out. We'll get it to you guys though. Okay. So here we have our cake, and it has a crumb coat. It now has kind of an exterior coat. I'm going to just show you one more technique before we do the meltables, and it just adds a little bit of color and again some intrigue. So I have pre-dyed a bunch of frosting, and all I'm going to do is do some little dollops of it along the side, and then I'm going to use my flat cake scraper, cake comb, and I'm just going to kind of smudge it so it gives it a little bit of like that watercolor effect. And uh-oh, we good?
We're all good.
Okay, I just saw, okay, we're good. So I'm just taking these colors, doing tiny little dollops, nothing magic to the amount. I'm just trying to add a little bit of color. And then, let's see. Then I'm gonna take my comb and I'm gonna smooth it out, and you'll see the effect. It's really cool. It's just kind of this pretty, almost watercolory look. And I like using kind of those bright, bold colors a lot of times. But when you have white as your base color, it kind of blends with the white, so you get these different varying like saturations of the color, and it's so fun. Okay, again, there is no science to this. This is just add a little more here, do a little more there, till you feel like it looks the way you want it to. All right, so meltables. I hope that some of you have had a chance to play around with these, because they are delicious and they are so versatile and they are so fun, and there are so many things you can do with them, not just for cakes, but for just so many other treats. So I'm going to show you kind of what I do to achieve that drip that is so beautiful on cakes. So the ratio, so what I like to do with these meltables is I take a cup of meltables, and let's see, I'm gonna do, we have, if you do your recipes by weight, it's about 6 ounces, which I guess is about half of a bag. So I take half of a bag of meltables, and the thing that's really fun is we do have some flavors and different colors coming out later, but in the meantime, we have primary colors that are available, and we have white, and you can mix and match your own, you can make your own colors. So, so I'm gonna start with just this true blue color. And then what I do, because the meltables, if you've had them, you know that there's a snap to them, right? Like they set up and they're kind of firm. And so to avoid having that snap and that kind of hard texture to cut through for a cake, I'm gonna add a tablespoon of vegetable oil to these, and it just softens it up just enough that when you're cutting it, you're not like having a hard time getting through it, and you're not really cracking the meltables as after they've set up. So I just have some oil. I'm just gonna drizzle it over the top. Just give it a little stir so it's incorporated. And then I'm gonna pop it in the microwave. One of the things that you wanna be really mindful of is paying attention to how long you put the meltables in. So I initially start for 30 seconds, just at, ooh, that said 3 minutes. That would not be good. That would burn and it would smell and you'd be sad because you would not be able to use them. Okay, here we go. So, so while the meltables and the oil are just working together, I'm just so excited to have these products because, again, as someone who's been playing with cakes and cookies and cupcakes and pretty much anything that has sugar in it from the time she was little, it's so fun to have a product that is easy to use, reliable, delicious, and again, it's so versatile, so versatile. Okay, so you can kind of see they've already begun to melt, but I'm gonna stir them up a little bit more. And they're still a little bit clumpy. So I'm gonna put it back in, but I'm just gonna do short little bursts because I don't want to melt my meltables too much or else they'll seize up and then it's no fun. So,
Megan, can you also use something other than a microwave, such as like a melting pot to melt these?
absolutely, yes. You just wanna make sure if you're using a melting pot, you just wanna make sure that you are, have it really on like simmer. So again, you're not gonna be like boiling the chocolate. Okay, so after that, it came out and I was stirring it, there were some like initial clumps. You can see that the viscosity is really great and it's a really nice texture. So the great thing also about meltables is if they do set up after you're working with them, you just pop them back in the microwave. They're very forgiving unless you do it too long. Okay, several different ways you can do a drip. There are tools, there are bottles, there are lots of things, there are scoops, but I'm just gonna show you how to do it with a spoon. So really, there's kind of two, I would say, two methods that I like to use. One would be to just dump all of this, all of the meltables on top of the cake. And then you would take your spatula or whatever and you would kind of just move it back and forth and let it drip over. With that, you have a little bit less control over how your drips fall. And so I'll do that kind of over here after I show you, I think what's kind of the preferred method, which would be to do your drips kind of just individually at first. And you can see as I'm a little bit like pushing the meltable down as I go. And then I'm just gonna add another guy here. And you know, this is something that, again, this is just like the coloring on the side. There's no right or wrong way to do it. If you want a longer, a longer drip, you just keep pushing it. If you want a short drip, just do a little bit like that. And then you can you just keep going. Keep going all the way around. So I'll show you on this, excuse me, on this back side, kind of the different look that you get when you dump the meltables on first and then pour it off. So let's see. So see, you can get these nice crisp, you can space them out as far as you want. If you could leave your cake like this and just have some drip on part of it and then accessorize, with other things. Okay, So I'm gonna pour some on.
Megan, while you're doing this, sorry, we have a question. So after you've decorated with your drip, could you put this in the fridge and it would set up and stay nice for a couple days?
So that's what I was gonna say, is after you've put your drip on it, you for sure wanna pop it in the fridge and let it set for decorating purposes. But even like after, if all you want is this, or after you've decorated or whatever, yeah, you can definitely leave it in the fridge and that's a good place for it to live. So, okay, so can you see the difference of how it looks when I poured it versus kind of meticulously adding these drips? So again, if you want that kind of more concise, evenly spaced out, more control over the way that your drip falls, you can use a spoon, you can use a piping bag, you can use a squeeze bottle, but you see, you can just, you know, add these like that. But again, once you kind of pour it on the top like this, it has more of it. So it's like, you know, physics. I'm not a science girl, friends, but I think it's physics that plays into it, and gravity. So see how it kind of has a little bit more of an uneven look versus like that. So just gonna finish this off right here.
Megan, could you do this without a turntable?
Yes, you definitely could. The other thing you could do though is if you have like a Lazy Susan at your house, you can just put a plate down on top of your Lazy Susan, put your cake on top of it and use that. You could also just use, I mean, like a number 10 pan or something that elevates your cake that you can easily, and I mean, not like a tall skinny base, but something that has some width and some structural integrity to it so that it can hold the weight of your cake. But you would just have to make sure that you're careful with whatever structure you're using so that you don't like knock your cake over or tip it over while you're doing it. So, okay, so again, see how it's kind of like more of a coating versus these kind of long, skinnier drips. So, okay, so normally in a perfect world, I would throw this and I would let it set up in the fridge for 15, 20 minutes or whatever, just to make sure that my meltables are totally set up. Otherwise, if I started, excuse me, I'm under some light, so it might stay a little bit soft, but otherwise, if you started decorating like right away and didn't let it set up, you might have some just things slide because it's not all the way firm. So we're gonna give it a little go though, and see, just for time's sake. So okay, let's talk garnishing. So there are so many fun products that are available to just make your cake look so fun. We have some just lollipops, we've got some gumballs, we have little gumballs, and then we have these darling sprinkles. But I should say that, you know, kind of my super cheesy mantra that I have said for my whole life is like, it doesn't take much to take something that's pretty ordinary and make it look and feel extraordinary. So you probably have stuff at your house that you could put on here and just add to it and build to it that would be amazing. Anything from, you know, marshmallows or store-bought cookies or candies, or just, I mean, anything. If you made some cookies or brownies or whatever that you've made at home, Rice Krispie treats, just adding anything on top to the sides, it really, really adds a level of detail and just intrigue that is so fun. So I have at my fingertips down here, just again, some of these fun things. I'm gonna go back to my colored frostings. I'm gonna talk a little bit about these tips and about piping bags. But again, this is what's so fun to me about decorating cakes is that, you know, you guys are all creatives, okay? You're here, and I'm so happy that you're here with me today, but you have that in you. You have that drive to just, you know, channel your inner creativity and just let it fly. And so that's what's been so fun for me as a cake artist, is just to kind of zone in on this cake. I don't have to, you know, think about or worry about real life. It's kind of a way for me to detach from all the things, but to really just focus in and be like, okay, where should I put this sucker? Or what if I balance this piece over here with this gumball or whatever it is? And I just would, you know, advise you to kind of just let it fly. Just unleash your inner creativity and just go to town. So you're gonna see, we're gonna transform this cake pretty quickly, and it's gonna be super fun. Okay, so those same colors that I kind of just blobbed on the side and scraped, I actually have in them just different tips. Again, no rhyme or reason. These ones are open star tips. This one's like a little bit bigger. This one's a little small, which kind of looks more like a shell. I have just like a big round tip. I have this kind of vertical slot that actually has kind of like combs on one side. So I'll show you, you can get different textures depending upon how you hold it. And then, yeah, we're just gonna start adding all the things. One thing to keep in mind, which is also a wonderful gift that the cake gods bestow upon us, and that is that there's always a front and back to a cake. So let's pretend you started going and you're like, oh, I don't like that drip, or darn it, I smudged it right here, or oh, this color looks off balance. Then you just turn your cake around and you decide which you want to be the front and which you want to be the back. That's some of the greatest advice as a bakery owner and as someone who's made thousands of wedding cakes, is that it's just a little bit of peace and assurance that, like, although I'm a perfectionist, it's okay for there to be imperfections and no one has to know about it because I can hide it in the back. So I'm gonna look in my camera to see which I want to be the front. Today I'm kind of feeling more of this all over coverage of the drips. So I'm just gonna start by taking my frosting, just this white frosting, and I'm just gonna do tiny little swirls, and I'm applying even amounts of pressure, just doing little spirals. I'm gonna do pressure like this. I'm gonna squeeze it off so I have a dollop. I'm gonna do another one right there. And then I'm gonna set down the white for a little bit. And then I'm just gonna, again, no rhyme or reason to this in any way. I have a star tip. I'm gonna pipe a little rosette. Maybe fill in a spot right here.
Megan, while you're doing that, are you using double bags for the piping the frosting?
Yes. So one tip that I love to do is I actually will fill frosting in a bag, and then I put my tip in a separate bag. I put my tip in a separate bag. So I have two bags in the event that, let's pretend I wanted to now take the orange or the white and use the tip that I already have, you know, in this bag. All I would have to do is just squeeze the frosting out and then put the other color in here, and then I have access to this tip. It's no longer tied up by a certain color. So that's something that has been super helpful for me throughout the years. So again, just different tips. You can find these. Michael's has a ton of them. So many great options, and you don't even have to know really what it looks like, what it's going to look like when you buy it. You can just get it and then put some frosting in a bag and just start playing with it and see what else it can do. So this tip, this is the one that I said kind of has some like teeth marks. I don't know if you can see that, I'll pull it up, but kind of has a little bit of texture on it when I use the one side of it that has the combs. If I flip it over and put comb side down, here, I'll do it over here, you no longer get that texture and it just looks like, you know, like you used a different tip. But really, you just flipped it over. So again, I'm just adding color.
Megan, while you're decorating, what are the food coloring that you use? What's the food coloring that you use?
So food color, I use lots of food colorings. I'm trying to think. I would say that really any food coloring is great because well, let me back up. Kind of going back to the meltables and kind of having like your primary colors and being able to just add, to make your own shades, basically, to make your own color. That's what I have found with food coloring. There are so many available and I feel like so many work great, but what I like to do is, you know, take a particular red or a particular copper tone or, you know, particular warm brown or whatever it is. And then I kind of just will mix those together to really achieve the right, you know, the right shade. I love doing that because I feel like it's different, you know, it's, it adds such a different feel to a cake when it's not just like your regular primary, super saturated, rich colors, which are awesome. Don't get me wrong, but definitely I think it's fun to really incorporate other hues and really utilize white to kind of be able to make the color go further and to just kind of get different pastels or, you know, different shades. So so I hope that was helpful. So okay, so you can see right now I just have use different tips to kind of get that fun, you know, it just feels like unruly, but I think it's so fun. So now what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna start taking some of these gumballs, some of these sprinkles, and I'm just gonna start putting them all over the cake. I gotta find my front again, friends. I think I'm so used to looking at the cake from here and, you know, I'm building upon it from this way, but I wanna make sure that I do it so it looks, I think that's where we were. Yeah, I think we were right there. So, okay. So I'm just gonna add some of these suckers. So fun, so cheerful. Just gonna add, let's see, a little white. Little guys. I will say, so I have 6 children and they could not care less about the cake. All they want on their cakes are all the candies. So if you want to like win over the hearts of some people that you love and that are close to you, put some candy on a cake and watch them fight over who gets what. It's actually pretty entertaining and it's not very hard. You let the candy do most of the hard work. Okay, and then these, I just have to talk a little bit about these sprinkles. One of the reasons that I'm even here today as part of the American Crafts team is just that years ago, I just felt like there needed to be more options when it came to sprinkles, and it's been so fun to create all these different mixes and just to really think outside the box and come up with things that I feel like my fellow cake artists and at-home bakers and decorators would appreciate. So, and it's been so fun to see so many of you use them, and it's like, honestly, it just is the best thing ever. So if you haven't had a chance to see any of them, please go to Michael's, go on their website, check it out. They're so, so fun. And again, that's something that's really simple that just adds such a great element to these cakes. The other thing you can see I'm doing, I'm actually, even though these mixes are already so cute and different, like in and of themselves, I'm actually mixing them together, even though on their own, independent, they don't really need much. They don't need anything. But I just am like, but I love this one too. And I want this one in there as well. So we're just keep adding all the things. Okay, so let's see. Again, I'm like, I feel like I need to give it a quick little look this way. Okay, I'm gonna build up this sucker situation a little bit more, because why not? Let's see. You have another.
Hey, Megan, while you're doing that, hey guys, this is Katie from Michael's. I just shared a link with you guys to see a lot of these really exciting sprinkles and lollipops and things that Megan is adding to the cake. But for those that don't know, we do have curbside pickup these days and same day delivery in some markets. So in case your store may not be fully open, definitely check on the website. You may be able to get some of these treats and bring them home today.
So fun. Okay, so next little tip before we kind of, I think, wrap up here is just with the sprinkles. So I put some along the top, which is so fun, but then around the base, I'm gonna add a few, and I'm gonna add a few on here. You'll notice as, if you kind of go in that order, the cake will kind of have already like set up and it'll be a little bit crusty. And so right now, like if I tried to like stick a sprinkle on there, then it might not stay. So what I like to do, I just get a tiny, tiny little bit of water, and then I just gently like tap my finger in it, and then I grab my sprinkles, and then I add, I don't know if you can see it that well. I'll try to put it on the part that you could see a little bit better. But anyway, it just kind of acts as like a glue so that you can actually get some of the sprinkles onto the side of the cake in the event that it has already set up, which in our instance, it has kind of set up a little bit, which is fine. The other thing you can do is take like, let's see, just like a little bit of frosting, tiniest bit, just to kind of get your finger like a little bit tacky. And then you can put that frosting like gently on the cake, and then see what happens if I dip my finger in it. Oops, I realize you guys might not be able to see it. But then again, it just kind of acts as a glue so that you can stick your frosting, you can stick your sprinkles onto the side of the cake. And that's also a really fun technique if you are wanting like a very, I refer to it as like sprinkle placement, right? If you're like, okay, I just want like a few of them, right here, or it just needs like one Jimmy or one nonpareil or whatever it is. You really have control when you just use a little bit of water or like a little bit thinned out frosting. The other thing you can do for a base is just, oops, my frosting had crusted over a little bit. Just use those same colors maybe that you used along the top. If you have, leftovers in your bags. Let's see, that was our front, okay. And then, see, it happened again. The buttercream will crust up a little bit, and when it's crusty like that, and I try to do an initial dollop, it doesn't stick to the cake because it doesn't have that texture. So anyway, you can just take your frosting. Let's see, we'll take these fun little sprinkles. That is a happy sight. If you could see, there are sprinkles falling everywhere on this table. It's fun though. So anyway, so there you go. How are we looking? You looking pretty good? We're looking pretty good. Okay, so thank you guys. That was so fun. So fun to be here with you. I hope that there was some nugget of information or inspiration that you were able to take from our time together today. And I'm happy to stick around and answer any questions that you might have. So thank you so much, Michaels. Thank you so much for having me. And again, thank you guys for being here today.
Megan, thank you so much. I think everybody is showing their love and their excitement. I think we do have a couple questions pouring in, but I just wanted to say we do have more of these classes coming. You want to check out michaels.com/classes. We'll post the link. We'll have this video up tomorrow, and then we'll be having classes almost daily at this point. But we've got more baking content coming for you guys, so keep an eye out. Anyway, I'll let you get back to questions if we have any. I'm trying to see what's come through. It looks like, oh, go ahead, Elizabeth, sorry.
No, sorry, I'm so sorry. I was just gonna say, if you wanted to add a whole bunch of sprinkles, like a band of sprinkles on the side, would you use just more water and put more water on the side to make it like really thick?
Okay, so do you mean like to coat the entire cake or just like a little band? The band? I heard you say band.
Yeah, it's just if you want a band of sprinkles on the side, when would you add that?
Good question and super easy answer. So let's talk parchment paper. Also something that is your best friend in the kitchen for so many reasons. So what I would do if I were trying to add like an even, you know, kind of band around the base, what I would do is I would go like this with my parchment paper. I would take some frosting. We're gonna pretend. We're gonna use our imagination right now. And I'm gonna take my frosting and I'm gonna put some frosting down here. And I'm gonna do the same thing all around my cake so that when, so you'll see your frosting up here is already set. Like, look what happens. If I throw sprinkles at it, nothing's sticking, it's falling. So what you're gonna wanna do, you're gonna apply a fresh layer of frosting around the base so that you can then take your sprinkles and you can either cup them with your hand, you know, and put them up kind of like that. You can take a spoon, you can do the same thing, but the trick is to do it while the frosting is still wet and tacky so that it adheres, so the sprinkles adhere to the cake. But that's a really fun way, and you can get like a super clean line if you use parchment. You could also, you know, cut the parchment, like let's say you wanted to do like a little spiky or, you know, whatever shape you want. And then you'll just use that to kind of protect the cake that's already dried from the new frosting that's going on to the cake. And sprinkles will then stick to the frosting. Does that help? I hope. Yes? Yay? Okay, awesome. Do we have any more questions, Elizabeth?
We've had a couple. Just can you reiterate about freezing the cake with frosting, kind of what we talked about at the beginning?
So again, this is something that is so helpful. So you can bake your cakes ahead of time and you let them come, you know, let them cool down to room temperature, and you'll level them. Any of the edge of the cake or any unevenness that you want to get rid of, you'll do it at that time while the cake is still not warm by any stretch, but just set and cold. And then you can wrap your cake in saran wrap and stick it in the freezer for anywhere, again, up to like a day, up to a few weeks, which is so helpful for our busy lives, you know, because you can, let's say you're like, I have an extra hour, I can make parts of the cake, but I don't have several hours to do all of the cake. So you can just chop it up and do it into pieces. The other thing that is so wonderful about it is it really helps when you're assembling your cake, because it adds just a level of like structure and strength to the cake that it's not like jiggling and wobbling all over the place. So I highly recommend freezing your cakes. initially I remember thinking like, oh, but people, maybe they won't think their cake is fresh, but you're making your cake fresh and you're freezing it, you know, as soon as it cools down an hour later. So you're still maintaining the, you know, the delicious factor and the freshness factor, especially when you freeze it right away. So yeah, anything else?
All right, I think we've hit most of the big ones. Thank you guys so much for joining today. And again, this video will be up tomorrow at michaels.com/classes. We can't wait to see you guys again soon. Everyone stay safe and enjoy all your projects.
Thank you.
Bye.
How do I